Hello and welcome to Red Mist TV. Manchester United are set to appoint its first director of football in its 140-year history. Reported by The Guardian first a couple of days ago, this is now getting widespread reaction, widespread fan reaction. We've seen prominent Man United fans like Mark Goldbridge of the United Stand saying that the board has let Jose Mourinho down. Is this now a strategy for the first time, a transfer policy being put into place by Manchester United? Barry, from the outside looking in, what's your take on United going down what is a pretty American and European route?
I'll be interested to see whether it works. The concept, as you say, is proven in Europe. It depends really on the characters involved. My concerns would be that Jose has failed to make the big signings that he wanted in this particular window. He's been frustrated by the board, by Woodward. This seems to be the next step Manchester United are taking. What happens if they bring somebody in, a big name into the Manchester United decision-making level, round the table, and that surely is another layer for Jose, because Jose can be difficult, we know, to get on with. So if you don't get the right person in there to hit it off immediately, Manchester United could well be in trouble. So it could go that way, but at the same time, over the long term, I see why Manchester United would want to go down this line. So what's happening, moreover, in football nowadays is that managers come in for what is a short period. We're not going to see the likes of the tenures like Arsene Wenger, Sir Alex Ferguson, going forward. So a club needs to have a clear strategy, and that strategy should straddle 10 managers, let's say. It should go for the next 10 years, and that means that you have consistency within your club, you have policies set down, you have standards laid out, and you have the money involved there as well. So the manager who's coming to your club knows exactly what he's signing up for and who he will be able to go for in the transfer market.
Yeah, and he knows what his job is, and his job isn't to solely make transfer decisions. It's part of a Kaizen group. And you can imagine a big ego manager like Jose Mourinho would have a problem with that, because they want to control everything and they want to be the dominant force in all of the team affairs and all the decisions the club is making. But you could get a manager who actually thinks, do you know what, if he's pretty laid back and doesn't have such a dominant alpha approach, he thinks, do you know what, I could actually really use some help to get this done. I remember that Kevin Keegan, didn't he have a nightmare when he went back to Newcastle United for a second spell because they were signing players that he just hadn't a clue about? I think Obafemi Martins was one of those players. That's maybe going back to just the turn of the century. But look, it's a European model that we're now seeing more and more coming into the Premier League, and there are more Premier League clubs that have directors of football than actually you would recognise. But it goes back to the critical point of Manchester United's history, which was the retirement of Sir Alex Ferguson. But actually, that was what the timing was. But the landmark thing with the transfer policy was David Gill's retirement. What happened then is Ed Woodward has come in. We know he's a great commercial guy. We've got some evidence that supports his strength of commercial brokerage. And the Man United's financial records show that. But the transfer policy and the strategy has been virtually non-existent. So David Moyes has come in 2013. It lasted, 9 months. Did his own thing, broke up the backroom team, signed Juan Mata and Marwan Fellaini, chased after Thiago Alcantara, Toni Kroos, Cesc Fabregas to no avail. United crying out for a centre midfielder at that time. Then Louis van Gaal came in and he did it his own way with a totally different approach. Had a relatively quiet series of transfer windows, and then had this explosion over the summer when 6 players came in: Di Maria, Blind, Falcao, Schweinsteiger, Schneiderlin. All these players then came in, and most of those players have now left the club. I think Ander Herrera is maybe, and Marcus Rojo are the only ones that are left. So there's no strategy, there's no vision, and if Jose Mourinho leaves, then United are in exactly the same position. So my gut reaction is that I would welcome it, because it is the evolution. It may have not been the thing that I would have done 5 years ago if I was in the decision-making seat at Man United, but at least it is a strategy, because I've complained so much since we started this that there's just no vision. You know, the last days of the transfer window were a joke, and the club just looked like a laughing stock. You know, if you believe what you read, which you probably shouldn't, you know, there's Jerome Boateng sending a message out to say thanks very much for the interest, Manchester United, but I'm not interested. It's like, what is going on? And then 6 hours before the window closes, we're making a last minute go at Diego Godin.
Yeah.
Apparently, I mean, it's just it just looks slapdash. Get them in, and we'll work it all out. And I think there was a wee bit of the Sanchez's about that. You know, he was sort of just get him in and we'll work it out, and it hasn't worked out at all.
Yeah, I mean, if Manchester United are to go down this route, does this signal the end for Jose? Because what they're ultimately saying is, Jose, you know, we listened to what you have to say. We still have the piece of paper with the 5 names on it. We've scrumpled it up, we've put it in the bin, but now actually we're bringing somebody else in who's going to basically be a mediator here, you know, going forward. So that could create some short-term difficulty for Manchester United until they get it sorted. One big concern for me, and if you look at the Chelsea situation, Abramovich, he's had periods under his control of the club that he has wanted to bring in individuals, not being necessarily a football-minded man. You know, he's made his money elsewhere. But if you've got then a guy who comes in, say, in this new position, and he's forcing the hand of the manager. He's saying, look, we're going to get this player for good money. We're going to get this other guy who's 33, but you're still going to play him. You know, that creates a difficulty then in attracting a new manager to replace Jose when the time comes, because he's going to be meddled with as well going forward.
Maybe, but more and more managers are coming through the ranks, and they're either big name players who have retired, like Zinedine Zidane, or they're more academic managers, and they are more in the mould of being a head coach. And Jose is quoted as saying, really my job title should change to head coach. The concept of the manager, the guy that did it all before Sir Alex Ferguson, to name you know, one of the most important ones, that's all gone now. And really, the manager that we perceive that position to be is really a head coach. He comes in, he makes tactical decisions, he drives the first team forward, he picks the team, and he's accountable for the results. The director of football would then be accountable for the quality of his transfer dealings, whether, you know, and depending on what the club is, or the size and scale of the club, it might be on what his net spend is against performance, or it might be, can this guy bring in the top marquee players? And if the top marquee players don't want to come and work for him, maybe he's not the right guy, and he would be judged on that kind of performance. But it is, as you say, Jose's given a shopping list to Ed Woodward, and it hasn't materialised. And it is possible that the board have just gone, you know, I hear what you're saying, Jose, Alderweireld and Maguire and stuff, and maybe they've said, you know, Maguire's just not value for money. He's had half a decent World Cup and a good season for Leicester, but 70 odd million bucks or whatever it's going to be to get him isn't value for money. But Jose's then turning around and basically saying to them, well, I did my job, I gave them the shopping list, and they haven't delivered on it. And that is, we're maybe now understanding where these difficult comments came from. You know, he's throwing it right back at the board to say, we're in for a difficult season because you haven't delivered the players that I wanted. Maybe the board are saying, no, Jose, we need to actually take, for the interests of the club, a strategic view. And it's not just a case of you saying that we're going to have a difficult season because you didn't get what you wanted. You've spent £300 million as Man United managers. Go and make the team better. You or the coach focus on coaching, improving players, getting the tactics right, improving the style of play, getting results. So it is interesting because maybe this is the strategy. What it does do though is it does throw questions up about Jose Mourinho's future. I think it gives us a bit more of an insight into Ed Woodward and maybe some of the bad decisions that Manchester United have taken as a club since David Gill departed. Because really, are we now, is Ed Woodward, and I would respect him for this, is he now saying, do you know what, transfer market is just not my area of strength. It's not, you know, I'm the chief executive of the club, so I'm the overarching figure responsible for the whole thing. Report to the New York Stock Exchange and to the Glazers and all that sort of stuff. But really, when it comes to doing transfer business, I'm inconsistent and I just don't know. And now we'll have to get someone in that can report to me that's going to deliver the transfer strategy. And I would give him credit for that if he said that.
If that's the case, the difficulty being then is who exactly do you bring in to slot into that role? Because for me, I would like to see, if I was a Manchester United fan, somebody who has served time at the club, who knows the club inside out, who's been there through the successful years. Right. We mentioned off air maybe the likes of Paul Scholes, maybe or maybe not in terms of his business acumen. But would you actually need to have a lot of business acumen if you're one of the world's foremost players in the last kind of 10, 15 years, and you're trying to attract individuals to a club? Surely they can put their point across and attract whoever it is.
Yes, because players might say, do you know what, I really want to play for Paul Scholes. So that would work if he was in that sort of hierarchy position at Man United. You can see it working. I believe that the role is actually more of a football business and an administrator of a guy. But look, to give Ed Woodward his credit for what he's achieved at Manchester United, if we go back, the figures stack up and speak for themselves. If we go back to 2006, Manchester United's annual turnover was £165 million. Now, since then, it's soared. But 28% of its revenues were from commercial deals and commercial sponsorships. You fast forward 10 years to 2016, club turned over 515 million, but actually 52% of the revenue was driven by commercial sponsorship. So Ed Woodward has increased the commercial sponsorship performance of Manchester United by 100% in his time, which he took over in 2013, and that is a rapid acceleration. The club's revenues have grown, of course, as well numerically, but it's the mix, that the way the club is earning its money that really goes to Ed Woodward's credit over his tenure. And because match day revenue is static, and the TV money has grown, of course, and it's a much more competitive landscape. But it's the way that we've grown the commercial business with sponsors for everything now. With tire partners and watch partners. It was Tag Heuer, then it was Hublot, and I think DHL sponsored the training kit. Training kits. I mean, that brand gets activated in the press conferences and stuff. It is, so it's very well thought out, you have to say. But transfer market has been messier. So with the director of football, I think what Ed Woodward will do is he will take a business approach to it, because he has to satisfy the shareholders, the New York Stock Exchange and the Glazers when he's doing this. So for him to say, we'll get Paul Scholes in to do it, or Roy Keane in to do it, or Ruud van Nistelrooy, or someone like that, like a club legend, to do it, it's not going to work out. And if you look at some of the clubs with directors of football, it would suggest to me that they'll go for a big name in that field who has a track record. So they appointed David Moyes, didn't work out, and that was a bit of he didn't have the track record, but he had the reputation at the time, would you say? But then after that, they went, right, forget all that. We're not making these sort of like luxury. We don't have the luxury to make these kind of appointments anymore, these romantic appointments anymore, the chosen one and all that sort of stuff. They got Louis van Gaal, who had a proven track record. He might have been a man of the 90s. I think it's Jamie Carragher said. Because when you think about
back
Louis
at
van
Barca,
Gaal, you think Barcelona.
Yeah.
He did well at Bayern Munich now, Louis van Gaal, you have to say that. But he's a man of the 20 years ago or 15 years ago. But he had a massive track record, and that's what they appointed him on. In comes Jose Mourinho. Why have they appointed Jose Mourinho? Track record. That's it. So I think they'll do the same with the director of football. So just to give you an idea, clubs who have directors of football, I thought this would be interesting. Roma, Dortmund, Atletico Madrid, Inter Milan, Real Madrid, Juventus, Benfica. So you think it's a very European thing. But obviously with the influence of European football in the Premier League and the investors that come in, Manchester City have a director of football, of course, that his name is Sheikhy Bergestein. Chelsea have Michael Inalo, and Everton have Steve Walsh, who was the guy that was given so much of the credit for his time at Leicester, signing N'Golo Kante, Okazaki, Mahrez. This is the guy that found Riyad Mahrez. So I would imagine if Manchester United are going to make an appointment, it's going to be someone like Bergestein, Inalo, Walsh, somebody like that. Some of the other candidates that are out there that have very high profile, Giuseppe Marotta, who's the Juventus manager, who worked with Conte, Allegri. He bought and sold Carlos Tevez, bought and sold Paul Pogba. So he's got a good record in changing management but keeping Juventus at the top, but also making great money in the transfer market. I mean, look what he made on Paul Pogba. Monchi, this is the guy. I think that's an interesting one. This is the guy who's now currently the Roma sporting director, but he is given much of the credit of the Sevilla team that won the Europa League 3 years on the spin with Unai Emery. Closer to home for you guys, Michael Zorc is at Dortmund, and he's the guy that appointed Jurgen Klopp and has worked with him on all the transfer dealings. I think Mario Götze might be one of the key players coming in and out of Borussia Dortmund. Some other big names, Rui Costa is the Benfica sporting director, Anthony Zubizarreta is the Marseille.
You see, that's what I like. I actually like the ex-player.
Yeah,
it's
interesting.
I think that could work well at Manchester United.
Yes.
I don't see if Manchester United go down the route here right now at this time of appointing somebody who has a good business brain but hasn't necessarily played the game. Jose and him are not going to head it off.
No, they're not going to head it off at all. And it is your point is so valid, because does this appointment, is this the beginning of the end of Jose Mourinho? Is it inevitable that now he leaves and the club is actually gearing up to be like a Chelsea, where it used to be 3 and 4 years, it's now 2 years?
Yeah.
A club, Carlo Ancelotti won the double in his first season, won nothing the next season after that. I think he was gone by October. Antonio Conte lasted 2 seasons exactly. Fabulous first season, disaster second season, change him. But the director of football stays, the hierarchy stays.
Yeah, I mean, I like that, but Manchester United don't have the luxury at this moment in time of kind of dovetailing somebody into that position without something happening, in my opinion, because Jose's there. He's a huge personality. He's a huge ego. The other side to it is, we talked about this window and United's difficulties within it. Is there anything within what you've just said in terms of managers staying for 3-4 seasons now, and the fact that if I'm one of the world's top players and Jose's coaxing me in here, well, hold on, I'm going to look at my prospective employers and say, well, who's the manager? Well, he's bound to be going in the next season or two. So actually, what happens to me after that? So there's a bit of that in the window as well.
It's become a job now where you're the head coach. So
yeah.
You go in, it's 2 to 3 years, you move on, you go and find something else. There's no, you're not going to get these big dynasty managers anymore, Fergie and Wenger, as you mentioned. Look, we've had a couple of fan videos come in. So Chris Smith is sending us through his views on the potential director of football appointment. Let's hear what Chris has to say.
Hi Barry, hi Scott. Just my 2 cents on the new director of football that's touted about being brought in for Old Trafford. I think it could be a way of Woodward having that barrier up between him and Jose. Whether that's a good thing or not, I'm not too sure. I think it could cause more issues, and it could be the sort of final nail in the coffin for Mourinho going out the door, because I don't think he'll get his own way. I think this here director of football could be potentially a good idea. I know it has worked in other clubs, especially for managers that don't choose to stay about a club too often, and hopefully it could potentially bring in some talent that maybe would have been overlooked, and maybe more value for money. And I know we're going to still probably pay the excess prices because of the name of the badge and the sort of club that we are, but hopefully in the long run it'll work out well for us.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny. I mean, I agree with that guy, so much in terms of football opinion, and maybe that is the mood of the fans, that, well, we're more open to things now, to change now. I think 5 years ago, if someone said director of football, Manchester United, nah, I mean, that's not the way we do things. Now we kind of are any other big club. We're just operating commercially at a vast level, so we have to adapt the business to the vast level. We mentioned Mark Goldbridge, who's obviously a very prominent Man United fan from the United stand, said that the board let Jose down in the summer. But maybe the way to look at it is, maybe the board is saying, maybe they did let Jose down, but they're okay with that, because maybe the board should start looking after Manchester United and not Jose Mourinho. He's had 300 million to spend. Short-term
pain, long-term gain. That's how I see this, and there might be a bit of, I won't say chaos, but there's going to be a period here, if Manchester United go down this route this season, that this may actually impact on the pitch. So you guys are going to have to take that on board as well. But again, if this is all for the greater good and you're going to bring somebody in who's going to provide consistency across seasons, across managers, throughout the club as a unit, I think it probably will elevate you as an entity long term.
And maybe Ed Woodward is saying, you know what, I'm just not going to take this from Jose Mourinho. I'm not going to take this. Well, I gave a shopping list and it's going to be a difficult season because it wasn't delivered. You know, maybe Ed Woodward said, hold on a minute, we need to change your job role. So the problem is you have a manager's job and actually you need to be a head coach. So you coach the players that you're given. If you can't deliver, then maybe you're not the right guy for us. You've had 300 million to spend as it is. You know, and you know, if you get on with your job, we'll get on with ours. Like, we're just not going to take this, that you're, you know, almost assassinating us in the press to suit your own agenda.
Why not sack him then? Too expensive?
I think, well, yeah, there's an expense to that. Yeah. I think, again, overall, he's done a good job because with biggest points tally since Ferguson, highest league finish since Ferguson, Europa League, that was a pretty good job under pressure to whenever the league campaign collapsed in his first season. It was the Europa League or bust to get into the Champions League. Believe it or not, actually, just looking into a wee bit of research for this, qualifying fourth for the Champions League versus through the Europa League is you get £10 million less if you do it through the Europa League. So you know, it was obviously a great achievement, but maybe the club is thinking, you know, we have to stack everything up commercially here. Yeah. So that 10 million wouldn't buy you a championship player these days, but it's 10 million.
Might pay for a sporting director.
Yeah, it might pay for a sporting director. So look, guys, send us in your comments. What do you think? What do you think about this decision? And it is a landmark decision. It's not to be taken lightly. That United are going to appoint a director of football for the first time in its 140-year history. We're live on YouTube. Make sure you subscribe to our channel. Hit the bell icon. That way you'll be notified whenever our next videos are going live. We're going to publish this video as well on our Facebook page, and any comments that you post, we will cover them on the next show. We also have a competition running to win a replica shirt of your choosing, Man United or Liverpool, personalised with your name and number or whatever it is that you'd like. Get over to our Facebook page where all the details are there. Right, so look, on to Liverpool. We obviously covered the lunchtime game. Then the Arsenal and Manchester City game came in. And before we talk about Liverpool, I just thought it'd be worth mentioning that it was just Arsenal
tepid.
Have they had a pre-season with? Did they not have a full pre-season with Unai Emery? This is going back to this concept of head coach be the head coach, and let the business people get on with the business. I mean, Arsenal. What would you be saying if that performance was under Arsene Wenger? You'd be saying they'd all be saying Wenger out, Wenger out. Arsenal fan TV be going mental.
Well,
it probably has gone mental. I
did. I caught a couple of Vox Pops this morning.
Right.
Two guys from Manchester City saying, well, you were easy to turn over. We expected much more out of you. This is two Arsenal fan TV, and the two guys going, absolutely nothing has changed. Then an Arsenal fan in, doing the usual effing and jeffing and saying, this is exactly the same footprint that we were left when Arsene was there. So
because the players are putting in the same amount of effort. So I watched Ozil, Ramsey. I looked at the teams. I was like, you are joking. Like there's no change at all. So the three behind the striker, Ozil, Ramsey, and Mkhitaryan. And I thought, well, maybe they've turned over a new leaf. Ozil gave the ball away. I think Ozil gave the ball away more than Sanchez did against Leicester.
That's impossible now.
No tracking back, no work rate, no nothing. Mkhitaryan, just decision after decision's the bad one. Aaron Ramsey, some days to me he looks like he could play League One football, and then the other day he'll have a great game. But
look, Manchester City run out winners, and
it was worrying. They were so comfortable.
They still. I mean, they're playing away from home. It's ominous for the rest of us for this season. However, our performance against West Ham, 4-0 success. I think everyone's back down to earth again. As a Liverpool fan, I don't want to get carried away with ourselves. However, it was the best opening day win at Anfield since 1932 when we beat Wolves by 5-1. And another amazing stat, since we have signed Virgil van Dijk, he has had more Premier League clean sheets than any other player since that time, and we haven't conceded at Anfield domestically since February, which is a
Yeah,
ridiculous
you wouldn't have thought that. You
No.
wouldn't have done it. I reckon did you concede? You conceded in the semi-final
against
Roma, like 4-0 up or 5-0 up.
Yeah. So all is looking good, but let's take baby steps. Now, Colin has been kind, and he sent us in some fan reaction. Colin, a big Liverpool fan, here's what he thought about our win against West Ham.
The season's up and running then with a very comfortable 4-0 victory. The pleasing thing about that was how comfortable it was. Liverpool sometimes have stuttered in the past in opening days to maybe scrape a draw or whatever, but they looked very comfortable from the first whistle. Keita for me was the best player in the park yesterday. Milner was superb, but I think Keita showed something different, and I think he's going to be a very exciting player for us in the future. Alisson, very hard to judge him on yesterday. I think he's going to be a very important goalkeeper, but his calmness yesterday was a huge boost to the whole team. But it's a very positive start, and looking forward to seeing what's to come, starting with Crystal Palace next Monday night.
So he makes a lot of valid points there. I did hear a chuckle out of you when he talked about the goalkeeper.
I'm glad Alisson was calm about it. I mean, nobody else was watching it. Listen, I think that's great. When's the open top bus parade?
Oh, here we go.
Next week.
Listen, we'll get all the buses deckled up after a few more weeks.
And the scarves and everything.
Yeah, we will. But no, big positives in there. We talked actually at full time. Milner had a fantastic game, coming back from injury, 15.
Andy Hinchcliffe thought he had a good game as well.
Well, he thought he was man of the match. He did, I looked at his pass completion rate, and, it was into the 80s, I think. So, and chances created, and so he played really well. Keita, Premier League debut. He looked very good. He looked very good in midfield. So again, that's another huge positive. I'd like to see Fabinho get a run. Shaqiri came on, did what Shaqiri does. He kind of buzzes in and out and in and out, and looks to create chances. I just hope he's got the same engine going back, when he does come on.
Which was the accusation made against him by the likes of Gary Neville and people like that.
When he was with Stoke. And other than that, 2 goals for Mane, who came off, Salah, and then Danny Sturridge.
Yeah, well, I think Hinchcliffe gave Mane a 5 out of 10.
Did he?
Or something, yeah, for his 2 goals. To give Milner,
man of the match. When somebody gets 2 goals, is kind of unheard of. But now, in terms of injuries, I haven't heard that we did pick up any injuries at the weekend, and I trust that is the case. Jurgen Klopp quoted after the game as saying, it is going to be a bit of rotation management this season. This is what he feels he lacked last year, was the ability to rotate with the strength and depth. Yes. He now knows, and he's being questioned by a lot of reporters, how are you going to manage these big egos and these big personalities, these big players? And his response to that yesterday was, well, look, we're in August at the minute. We'll get August and September over, and I guarantee you that whole squad is being used to its full effect. Yeah. Given the cup games, given Europe and everything else. Yeah,
and what we do, and what every football fan does, is we microanalyse the first couple of games of the season, because what happens is we have 3 Premier League games, then there's an international break, so you feel, the season started, it's back, and then there is this sort of annoying break with international football. Really, whenever you get into November time, whenever there isn't any international football until March the following year, you get into the run of the games, and you're less focused on each individual performance because it's taken with a view of the whole season. But I think we all fall into the trap of micro-analysing, a bit like pre-season, the first game of the season. Look, it was impressive, and you dispatched him. I didn't think he had to play at any pace, which was disappointing because that's what you want to see. But West Ham were absolutely pathetic.
Well,
totally pathetic.
We can only beat what's put in front of us. Liverpool, if I'm sitting back looking at that, it's like a pre-season workout actually, maybe ramped up slightly, but not a lot. And actually, Liverpool are going to be put under a hell of a lot more pressure going forward into the weeks to come, particularly. And I said to you, I think us going to Crystal Palace, and we've struggled there in recent seasons. We're going there on a Monday night, going to London on a Monday night, you play there. I wouldn't have as much confidence of returning with 3 points as easy as we did against another London outfit in West Ham.
Yeah, and we're going to be back looking at all the news during the week, and then we'll be doing previews, half times and full times of Crystal Palace against Liverpool, and then Manchester United, who travel to Brighton on Super Sunday. So that's it, okay, for now?
Yeah.
Guys, make sure you check out our Facebook page where we are running that competition for the duration of August. We'll see you this week for the next show.